Okay, I got you. Okay, this is Chief Ralph Uwazuruike from the Movement for the Actualization of the Sovereign States of Biafra. One thing I wanted to just do as a bit of introduction is talk a little bit about how very important the chief is towards the non-violent movement in Biafra. Biafra has different movements that are running, and the chief has been the leading light on the quest for non-violent change for the situation of the Biafran people for his entire life. We are truly honored to have him as a member. Membership in the UNPO, the decisions around Biafra, there were many different groups, I will just be openly say it, who were applying for membership. But to us, there was no doubt who was the right group for membership in the UNPO. And that is the group that is led by Chief Uwazuruike, who, as I say, is truly a leader for non-violent change in Biafra. Chief, I'm going to hand it over to you. We are really delighted to have you, and thank you for joining the UNPO.
The President, Secretary General, members of the UNPO, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Prof. Uwazuruike. I hold a degree in political science of the Punjab University, Chandigarh. I also hold a law degree of the Bombay University, India. I was called to the Nigerian bar in the year 1991. Incidentally, the year UNPO was registered. Okay. So, being MASSOB, by definition, being means Biafra independence movement, and MASSOB is a movement for the actualization of the sovereignty of Biafra, then part of Nigeria. And eastern part of Nigeria was part of the area amalgamated Lord Lugard in 1914. And that amalgamation did not in any way receive the consent of the people of Biafra and other parts of Nigeria. The tendency was that bad bedfellows were yanked together in Nigeria as one country. That was a very devastating thing that happened to Nigeria. Because of the unwavering nature of Nigeria, the eastern part of Nigeria was predominantly Christians, while the rest of Nigeria was predominantly Muslims. The tendency was that the eastern part of Nigeria became an endangered species in Nigeria. The northern oligarchy, led by the Hausa Fulani, singular attitude of wanting to conquer the rest of Nigeria. They want to Islamize the entire Nigeria and to take over the land of Christians who are predominantly the people of eastern Nigeria. This they do by force and by killing up of our people in all the northern states of Nigeria, including even the southwest. The tendency is that the lives and property of our people are not secured in Nigeria. In 1966, there was a thunderer of attack on the people of eastern Nigeria. All our citizens in the northern states of Nigeria and even in the western region were slaughtered. Most of our citizens living in their areas were slaughtered. The tendency was that the then military head of state, military governor of Eastern region, Bim Odumegwu, may his soul rest in perfect peace, had to bring together his people to safeguard their lives and property, and by that process, declared the Biafran war or Biafran independence. As soon as Odumegwu did that, the entire Nigerian state joined together to fight against the people of Eastern region, now known as Biafra. They barricaded the entire Eastern region, starved the entire Eastern region of food, and with the help of some foreign national countries, the entire Biafra land was suffocated. Tendency was that we lost over 3 million people in that exercise. Between 1967 and 1970, the war ended, and we had.
Akintoye, I'm going to unmute him just to make sure that. But just recently, this World Congress met and formed around the leadership of Professor Akintoye, and it seeks to represent all of the people of Yoruba with a very diverse membership within the Yoruba people. And for us, it's just wonderful to see a movement being developed like the World Yoruba Congress under the leadership of Professor Akintoye. I'm just delighted to have you join us and to join the UNPO. So the floor is over to you.
I want to start by thanking UNPO for giving me the opportunity to speak up for the Yoruba nation. Today, we, the Yoruba nation, we also call ourselves the Odua nation. When in 1914 the British amalgamated the Yoruba indigenous nation with other nations to form the country called Nigeria, the Yoruba nation was the largest single nationality in the new country and already had more than 1,000 years of formal civilization building in Black Africa. The Yoruba had started to live in towns and cities by the 9th century AD. By the time that the first European explorers came to the coast of West Africa in the 15th century, Yoruba land was already a copiously urbanized country. Indeed, one of the most urbanized countries in the world, with heavily populated cities and towns at short distances from one another. In the context of this urban civilization, we Yoruba evolved advanced economic, cultural, political, and religious systems. Earliest Europeans, explorers, and traders along the West African coast from the late 15th century found the influence of Yoruba civilization and Yoruba diaspora trading colonies among many West African peoples, and the Yoruba language as a language of commerce among many different peoples. With the coming of Christian evangelism and Western education in the mid-19th century, Yoruba urban civilization immediately enabled Yoruba land to benefit more than other parts of Black Africa. By the 1860s, we Yoruba were already producing a class of university graduates and educated professionals. The first newspaper in Black Africa was published in the Yoruba city of Abeokuta in 1859, and other newspapers were soon published in other Yoruba cities. For much of the rest of Black Africa, schools did not come until after 1900, by which time some Yoruba families were already producing their third generation of university graduates. amalgamation in 1914, the Yoruba were the only educated nation in the new country of Nigeria. From 1952 to 1962, under a limited self-government arrangement and federal constitution, which the British granted to Nigeria, the Yoruba nation proceeded to make the mostly Yoruba western region of Nigeria the pace setter in Nigeria and even in Africa in virtually all aspects of development and modernization. But the Nigerian environment has consistently been hazardous to the Yoruba nation. From the beginning, the British colonial rulers feared the considerably educated and culturally sophisticated Yoruba and proceeded to do everything to limit their influence in Nigeria. From the British, the tradition passed on to the non-Yoruba peoples of Nigeria that the Yoruba needed to be stopped and, quote, to stop the Yorubas, unquote, became the constant purpose of Nigeria. At Nigeria's independence in 1960, the British manipulated everything to impose the Hausa Fulani of northern Nigeria as the dominant group over the Nigerian federal government and to exclude the Yoruba leadership from the federal government. The British regarded the mostly uneducated Hausa Fulani, particularly the Fulani, as, quote, the friendly people, unquote, under whom British influence will continue to be strong in independent Nigeria. In 1962, less than 2 years into Nigeria's independence, the anti-Yoruba hostility finally produced a covert operation by the federal government of Nigeria, assisted by the British from the sidelines, to destabilize the predominantly Yoruba Western region. The covert operation succeeded in splitting the reputedly disciplined Yoruba political leadership of the Western region, and the federal government immediately rushed in, declared that law and order had broken down in the Western region, suspended the region's elected government, imposed a hand-picked sole administrator on the region, and imprisoned the topmost Yoruba leader. Finally, the federal government chose a faction of the disgraced Yoruba leadership as federal allies and proceeded to give them the legitimacy by blatantly rigging the regional election of 1965 for them in their favor. At that point, Yoruba youths of the Western region revolted, and they kept on stubbornly fighting the authorities until law and order totally collapsed in the Western region, and until the whole of Nigeria became profoundly destabilized. In January 1966, the Nigerian military, very displeased with the way the Western region was being handled, overthrew the governments of the Federation. For 3 decades after that, until 1999, Nigeria reeled in a dark and darkening cloud under military dictatorships. All the military coups, all the military dictatorships from 1966, July, until 1999, were led by military officers from northern Nigeria. This was so because the northern political elite, whom the British had manipulated into dominance over Nigeria at independence, had used their control of federal power to ensure a dominant number of northern officers in the military ranks. Under the successive military dictatorships, Nigeria descended deeper and deeper into crookedness, insensitive governance, rampant corruption, impunity, government effort to impose a religion, religious and inter-ethnic violence, insecurity, grossly poor and incompetent management of the economy, and hopeless poverty. The military dictatorships destroyed the essence of federalism grabbed all power and all resource control into the hands of the federal government, turned the state governments of the federation into helpless dependents on federal handouts, and thus destroyed the spirit of development and enterprise in all parts of Nigeria. Today, Nigeria is known as the #1 home of extreme poverty in the world. And there are predictions that in a few years, as much as 50% of all the most desperately poor people in the world will be Nigerians. Since the controllers of federal authority were consistently northern Muslims, the ambition grew among them to impose Islam upon Nigeria, a country with large numbers of Muslim, Christian, and traditional worshippers. They thereby led Nigeria into frequent Islamic fundamentalist explosions. The massive revenues being earned in these years by Nigeria from the petroleum exports turned out to be a curse rather than a blessing. Inevitably, the Yoruba nation was sucked into this deepening disaster. The military dictatorship seized important Yoruba assets that had been created in 1959-52 era in the Western region. Most of such assets were then poorly managed or deliberately allowed to decline or even perish. Deepening poverty became the lot of the Yoruba nation in Nigeria. Also, Yoruba political leadership increasingly fell for most of the insensitive governance and public corruption characteristic of Nigeria. In these circumstances, the Yoruba people have progressively lost the enterprising spirit and the spirit of service to society for which their nation has been known throughout its long history. The quality of Yoruba education has been destroyed. Yoruba language has declined and now faces the threat of extinction. To destroy Yoruba knowledge of and pride in their history, Nigeria's federal military government prohibited the teaching of history in schools. Yoruba rulers have neglected agriculture until farming came to have among them the image of an occupation fit only for the aged, the poor, and the illiterate, and until Yoruba land came to depend mostly on food importations. By 1962, cocoa export by Yoruba farmers were the source of funding for the Western region's ambitious development programs and the main foreign exchange. Most of Yoruba people have now given up on the agitation for restructuring and have moved to the position that the Nigerian situation should be sorted out by peaceful and friendly negotiations, which will enable the Yoruba nation, as well as other nations that so choose, to retrieve their self-determination and to pursue in their own way their political, economic, and cultural stabilization, progress, and prosperity. The Yoruba World Congress, which I have the honor to lead, and which consists of thousands of Yoruba men and women at home in Nigeria and in the Yoruba diaspora in most countries of the world, has stepped boldly forward to motivate the Yoruba people to defend their homeland and to prepare themselves for the accomplishment of their nation's ultimate goal of self-determination and prosperity. We Yoruba World Congress are an umbrella organization of hundreds of Yoruba civic organizations at home in Nigeria and in most countries of the world. We are working to empower our Yoruba youth to turn to productive enterprises and to begin to transform their lives. We are working with competent scholars of language to revive the Yoruba language. We are engaging in occasional schools aimed at regenerating Yoruba civility and common spirit and community spirit. some of our related organizations are beginning to plan a Yoruba referendum. Though our Yoruba Congress is less, Yoruba World Congress is less than 1 year old. And even though we are known to be faithfully committed to peaceful activities and peaceful purposes, the Nigerian government has already begun to take action against us. This past week, the Nigerian Director of State Security announced that all organizations like ours have been removed from the list of state-registered organizations, and that the security forces will soon are preparing to clamp down on the members of such organizations. So it is a great thing that at this point, when the Yoruba struggle for liberation and self-determination is reaching these heights and looking forward with hope, it's a great thing that we have the opportunity to be working with the UNPO. We are committed to peaceful means only, and we will not. It is part of our constitution that we will not let any situation or condition whatsoever push us into violent action. That's our decision. And we believe, the important thing is that we believe that peaceful means can achieve the purpose for which we stand. And that in the company of other nations in the UNPO, we will be able to achieve our purposes peacefully. I thank you all. I thank you on behalf of the Yoruba nation. And I thank you